to live faithfully to God, to live out what he commands us to do, how he wants us to live, even when it's unpopular, even when people might think you're weird, even when people might question your decision, even when it might make your friends not want to be your friends. Or you can choose to live for the applause of other people. You can choose to live your entire life desiring for people to like you, for people to think you're great, for people to think you're perfect, and just desiring for them to give you a pat on the back and be your best friend. But if you do this, you're inevitably going to run into situations where you're going to be in disobedience to God. So, growing up, I was a person, obviously. Growing up, I lived in a hockey home. And I played hockey, but I also watched a lot of hockey. My stepdad was a huge Boston Bruins fan. He had a dog named Bruin. And then when that dog died, he got another dog and named it Orson after Bobby Orr. He had Bruin shirts, he had Bruin jerseys, he had Bruin hats, he had Bruin blankets. This man bled black and gold. He loved the Boston Bruins. And so I knew growing up that I had to make a choice. I had to choose which team I was going to cheer for. And if you are a sports fan in the room, you know that when you're locked into a team, you're locked in. When you choose to cheer for a hockey team or a basketball team or whatever, you are choosing to cheer for that team for life. If that team's great, great. But if that team sucks, you are locked in and you have to live in suffering year after year after year. And so, we're continuing the series of the tragic life of Saul, both myself and King Saul. And the tragic part of this story is that the team that I chose was the lovely but awful New York Rangers. And if you know anything about hockey right now, you know that the New York Rangers are sitting dead last in the Eastern Conference. You would also know that the New York Rangers have not won a Stanley Cup since 1994, which was 10 years before I was born. So maybe my Leafs fans can relate with me on this one. But year after year after year after year, I get my hopes up so high that this will finally be the year. That the New York Rangers will finally win a Stanley Cup. And year after year after year, I am deeply disappointed. And it all goes back to that choice I made many years ago to choose the New York Rangers and forsake all other teams till death do us part. Like, I am a committed Rangers fan most of the time. Sometimes I think they suck. But I've chosen them, and so I got to stick with them. And we all make choices in life, right? And we all have to make these choices where we choose one thing, and that means we can't choose other things. Our yes to one thing means that we are saying no to something else. And you might know, like, you're growing up and you're graduating soon, and after you graduate, you've got a few options. But you can't do everything. You could choose to go to university, you could choose to go to college, you could choose to join the workforce, but you can't do all three at the same time, right? You got to make a choice. Or you could spend, 8 hours a day playing video games throughout your life, spend 8 hours just gaming away, or you could choose to have a girlfriend, but I'm telling you, you can't choose both. You could choose to scroll TikTok for 6 hours a night, just going away, scrolling through, and then you realize it's 4 a.m. and you have to get up for school at 7 a.m. So you finally go to sleep, but you're not going to pass that test if you've just spent 6 hours scrolling Instagram or TikTok throughout the night. You got to choose one or the other, and I thought we could start out today in a little bit of a fun way. I want you guys to help me make some choices. So what's going to happen is you'll notice Carter is back there, wave Carter. And we have Reuben over here. Each of them are holding eggs. They're raw eggs, okay? And each egg represents a choice. So I'm going to invite 3 of you brave souls to come up here. And what you're going to do is you're going to stand in the middle here, and I'm going to give you a choice. One side, one egg, will represent maybe $1 million. And then the other side could represent a trip to the moon. And you have to decide which one you would rather have, because you can't have them both. And when I say go, both Carter and Ruben are going to throw their eggs into the air, and you have to run and try and catch the one that you would rather have. But one of them's going to splat. One of them's going to hit the ground. You can't catch them both. So I need 3 brave people to come up here and help me with that. One hand over here. Got a hand right here, and I need one more right here. Okay. We'll go 1, 2, 3. So you'll make the first choice, you'll make the second choice, you'll make the third choice. Do you guys want to come over here a little bit? So you come up first. Here's our first choice. Okay, you can choose to 1, teleport anywhere you want in the world at any time once per day. So you can teleport there and back once per day. Or you could choose to get free food at any restaurant you want, any fast food place you want for the rest of your life. You never have to pay a dime. But you can only choose one. So don't tell us what you're going to choose. When I say go, you have to take off and try and catch one of those eggs, okay? 3, 2, 1, go! He's choosing the food. Oh! So close, so close, so close. Okay, number 2, come up. Guys, you can maybe move a little bit in a little bit. Yeah. Okay, second choice. Okay, you've just had a really hard week at school, okay? Your teacher's like giving you a bunch of homework, and you're like super tired from it all. And so you wake up on Friday, and you can choose A, this side, to sleep in for 45 more minutes. You can get 45 more minutes of rest, but you're going to be super rushed to the bus. You're going to get like no breakfast. Your teeth won't even be brushed. You're just going to have to rush straight to the bus if you do that. Or you can wake up 45 minutes early and be super prepared for school. You'll have, your hair done, your teeth brushed, you'll have breakfast, you'll have everything ready. But you'll have to wake up 45 minutes early. So, 3, 2, 1, go! So close, so close, so close. Okay, final choice here. Final choice. That was a good choice. Okay, last choice here. Okay, lock in, guys. Lock in. Okay, final choice. It's Monday morning, okay? Your teacher just gave you a huge homework assignment, like the biggest one of the year, okay? And it's due on Friday. But your friend comes up to you after class and says, hey, do you want to come over tonight? And you're going to hang out for the entire night, stay up with each other, have so much fun. So you can choose 1, to go and hang out with your friend, but you won't get your assignment done until like last minute. Or 2, you can go straight home and get the assignment done right away, but you don't get to hang out with your friend. Okay? Those are your 2 choices. And we'll let you pre-decide. You go to one side or the other. Okay. She's choosing the friend. Okay. 3, 2, 1, go! Oh, so close. She almost made it. She almost made it, and we hit the light fixture. That was crazy. That was crazy. Okay, cleanup crew. Now is your time to shine. Everybody lock in. Everybody back up here. Back up here. If you can hear me, clap once. If you can hear me, clap 2 times. If you can hear me, clap 3 times. Perfect. So, in life, we all have to make these choices. We all have to choose one thing, and when we choose one thing, we can't choose the other thing. And today, I'd like to take the rest of our time to talk about one choice that we are all going to have to make in life. Do you want to throw it up? So, in life, you have to choose 1, to live faithfully to God, to live out what He commands us to do, how He wants us to live, even when it's unpopular, even when people might think you're weird, even when people might question your decision, even when it might make your friends not want to be your friends. Or you can choose to live for the applause of other people. You can choose to live your entire life desiring for people to like you, for people to think you're great, for people to think you're perfect, and just desiring for them to give you a pat on the back and be your best friend. But if you do this, you're inevitably going to run into situations where you're going to be in disobedience to God. You're inevitably going to run into situations where you're going to be unfaithful to God. So we all have to make the choice. Are we going to live faithfully to God or live for the applause of other people? And as we continue our series, The Tragic Life of Saul, we're talking about King Saul. And the last time I talked about Saul, I talked about how the Israelites, God's people, they wanted a king, right? They desired a king. And we talked about, can we trust our desires? And so the people desired a king. God told them, it's not a good idea. I'm supposed to be your king. But they said they wanted one anyways. And so God gives them a king. And his name is Saul. And this is actually how the Bible describes Saul. And I think this is a great verse. I think we should all commit it to memory. I think this is probably my life verse. Let's throw it up on the screen here. It's really important, guys. His son Saul was the most handsome man in all Israel. He was the most handsome man in all Israel. Let's just remember that. Head and shoulders taller than anyone else in the land. So this guy, Saul, he's impressive. He looks impressive. He looks handsome. He looks tall. This guy looks like he could be a great king. And he starts out like a great king. He starts out by winning battles. He starts out by being faithful to God and his commandments. He starts out by having the Spirit of God come upon him. He starts out by being kind to God's people. Like he's doing some good things in the land. But his kingship quickly goes downhill. And one of the reasons it goes downhill is closely linked to the way he makes that choice, to whether he chooses applause or faithfulness or applause. It's closely linked to that. So let's dive into that story right now. We're in 1 Samuel chapter 15 today. If you want to take your Bibles and open up there, I'll give you a couple seconds to turn there. 1 Samuel chapter 15. Okay. 1 Samuel chapter 15, starting in verse 1, says this. One day Samuel's God's prophet. Samuel is the person that God would speak to the people and to the king through. So one day Samuel said to Saul, "It is the Lord who told me to anoint you as king of his people Israel. Now listen to this message from the Lord. This is what the Lord of heaven's armies has declared. I have decided to settle accounts with the nation of Amalek for opposing Israel when they came up from Egypt. Now go and completely destroy the entire Amalekite nation. Men, women, children, babies, cattle, sheep, goats, camels, and donkeys." So the prophet here comes to the king and says, go and completely destroy this entire nation. Completely destroy all the people and all of their possessions, basically. And that can make us feel kind of uncomfortable today. Because, isn't God love? We look at Jesus and we're like, isn't he supposed to be super loving? And does this mean the God of Old Testament is angry and killing babies and doing all of these terrible things, and then the God of the New Testament is super loving and super fun? Those are the thoughts that we think when we read passages like this. And we have to remember that God is loving, but God is also just, meaning he stands for justice. He doesn't just allow people to do a bunch of evil things in the world and then get away with it scot-free. He punishes people for doing bad things, whether in this life or the life to come, because he is a just God. He doesn't want people to hate each other. He doesn't want people to hurt each other. He doesn't want people to just tear up the good world he made. And this is exactly what the Amalekites were doing. It says here that the nation of Amalek opposed Israel when they came up from Egypt. And we read about what happened there in Deuteronomy, another book of the Bible. It says this, "Never forget what the Amalekites did to you as you came from Egypt. They attacked you when you were exhausted and weary, and they struck down those who were straggling behind. They had no fear of God. Therefore, when the Lord your God has given you rest from all your enemies in the land he is giving you as a special possession, you must destroy the Amalekites and erase their memory from under heaven. Never forget this." So what the Amalekites did, God's people were in slavery in Egypt, and God saved them from that slavery, and they're coming up from Egypt, and they're traveling a lot, and so they're tired. And the Amalekites, completely unprompted, come up and just murder a bunch of God's people. They just attack them out of nowhere. And this isn't the first time or the last time that we see the Amalekites attack the Israelites. The Amalekites attack the Israelites a second time later on. And a third time, they come and attack them and destroy their land and their crops and their food. And so the Amalekites are constantly waging war against the Israelites. They're constantly attacking the Israelites. They're constantly attacking God's people. And so God, in his justice, but also in his love for the Israelites, says enough is enough. Time has come, and the Amalekites need to be destroyed. And so he gives Saul this mission. But listen up to what Saul actually does. In verses 7 to 9, this is what it says. Then Saul slaughtered the Amalekites from Havilah all the way to Shur, east of Egypt. He captured Agag, the Amalekite king, but completely destroyed everyone else. Saul and his men spared Agag's life and kept the best of the sheep and the goats and the cattle, the fat calves and the lambs. Everything, in fact, that appealed to them. They destroyed only what was worthless or of poor quality. So Saul's commanded to completely destroy this nation, but instead he goes and wages war against them and basically lets his soldiers take whatever they think looks good. Whatever looks good to them, they're allowed to keep. And this is in complete disobedience to what God actually commanded Saul to do. And so God knows this, obviously, and so he sends Samuel, the prophet, back to Saul to confront him. And he confronts him a few times, and the first couple times that he confronts him, Saul is just blame shifting. He's like, the soldiers asked me to, the soldiers wanted this stuff, and I didn't really sin. I obeyed God. I did the right thing. But then they continue, and Samuel keeps confronting him. And this is what he says in verse 20. But I did obey the Lord, Saul insisted. I carried out the mission he gave me. I brought back King Agag, but I destroyed everyone else. Then my troops brought in the best of the sheep, goats, cattle, and plunder to sacrifice to the Lord your God at Gilgal. So he's like, I did what you wanted me to do, right? I went and destroyed pretty much everyone. We brought back the king, but everyone else was destroyed. And my soldiers, they brought back the sheep and the goats and the cattle, but we're going to sacrifice them to God. So we're pretty much destroying them. Saul thinks he's obeying God when he's actually disobeying God. And so what happens from here is Samuel continues to confront him and say, this isn't right. So in verse 22, he says this: what is more pleasing to the Lord, your burnt offerings and sacrifices, or your obedience to his voice? Listen, obedience is better than sacrifice, and submission is better than offering the fat of rams. Rebellion is as sinful as witchcraft, and stubbornness as bad as worshiping idols. So because you have rejected the command of the Lord, he has rejected you as their king. And catch this. This is key. Then Saul admitted to Samuel, yes, I have sinned. I have disobeyed your instructions and the Lord's command, for I was afraid of the people and what they demanded. Here we see why Saul disobeyed God. It wasn't because he forgot what God asked him to do. He disobeyed God because he was afraid of the people. He was afraid of his soldiers. He wanted to make them happy. He wanted, when they came to him and said, Saul, we really want these sheep, we really want these cattle, we really want all these animals. Saul's like, okay, I don't want to make them mad, I don't want to make them upset, so go ahead and take it. He doesn't care about being obedient to God. What he cares about is the applause and the approval of his soldiers. He wants them to think that he's a great king, a generous king, a kind king, a good king. But he just ends up disobeying God because of it. And this leads me to our big idea today. Our big idea today is that obedience is choosing faithfulness over applause. Obedience is choosing faithfulness over applause. Saul was the leader of the people. He could have super easily, when the soldiers came to him, said, guys, we're not doing this. We're not going to do this. God commanded us to completely destroy this. We're not going to compromise on that. We are going to obey the Lord. He's the king. He has the authority and the power to say that. But instead, he buckles under the fear because he wants the applause of his soldiers more than he wants to be faithful to God. And we continue to see this as a pattern in Saul's life continuing on. Because you might say, maybe Saul feared that they were going to attack him. But we see that what Saul really cares about is the applause. We continue in verse 25. It says this. This is Saul still speaking. He's speaking to Samuel. But now, please forgive my sin and come back with me so that I may worship the Lord. Sounds really sincere, right? But Samuel replied, I will not go back with you. Since you have rejected the Lord's command, he has rejected you as king of Israel. As Samuel turned to go, Saul tried to hold him back and tore the hem of his robe. And Samuel said to him, the Lord has torn the kingdom of Israel from you today and has given it to someone else, one who is better than you. And he who is the glory of Israel will not lie, nor will he change his mind, for he is not a human that he should change his mind. Then Saul pleaded again, I know I have sinned, but please at least honor me before the elders of my people and before Israel by coming back with me, so that I may worship the Lord your God. So Samuel finally agreed and went back with him, and Saul worshiped the Lord. Do you see the difference there in Saul's first request for Samuel to come back with him and the second one? There's a difference. In the first request, he says, please forgive my sins and come back with me so that I can worship the Lord. But after Samuel says, no, I'm not coming back with you, Saul shows his true colors. He shows who he truly is. Instead of caring about forgiveness, what he really cares about is this. He says, but please, at least honor me before the elders of my people. Saul just wants Samuel to come back with him so that everyone in Israel will look at them and be like, oh, look, Saul the king, he's all buddy-buddy with the prophet. He's all buddy-buddy with God's representative. He must still be good with God. Like, we can honor him. He's a good king. Saul just wants the applause of the people. He doesn't care about being forgiven because all he cares about is the applause. And this is the tragic part of Saul's life. Because he was God's king. He was God's leader in the nation. He was God's chosen one. But he doesn't care about God. He doesn't care about being faithful to him. He just cares what other people think about him. In fact, something interesting that Saul does is he tries to catch both of the eggs. Remember how he had the eggs? He's trying to catch both of the eggs. He's trying to make it seem like he's obedient to God and yet also get the approval of other people. He says, I did obey the Lord. Like, I did obey God. Look, I obeyed and we destroyed all these people, but, we kept the king. And, we did destroy most of the sheep, but, we kept the good ones. Like, he's partially obeying God. He's trying to catch both eggs. But by doing that, he really just drops obedience to God. He just drops faithfulness to God because partial obedience isn't obedience at all. And so he's trying to make both decisions, but can really only make one. And he just ends up failing God. And when we get into these situations ourselves, when we're fighting between, obedience to God or the applause of other people, the truth is we can't catch both eggs. Because obedience to God is not always the popular thing to do. Obedience isn't always the popular thing to do. Being faithful to God when He's calling you at your school, when you feel the conviction of the Holy Spirit and you've read your Bible and you know that God calls you to share the gospel with all people and share the good news about Jesus, and you feel like you should go tell people in your school about Jesus, but you don't want to make things awkward or you don't want to make things weird. Choosing obedience is not going to be the popular thing to do. Some people might get angry at you. Some people might say, why are you talking to me about this? Some people might not want to be your friend because of it. Or when the kid at the lunch table who sits alone every single day needs a friend, and you know that you're supposed to love him, you know you're supposed to be kind to him, but you don't want to go over to him because that's not the popular thing to do. The popular thing is to sit with your friends, right? Or when you're with your friends and they're trash talking somebody or they're gossiping about somebody, the popular thing to do isn't to say, no, guys, we shouldn't be doing this. We shouldn't be talking about this person this way. You don't want to sound judgmental or hypocritical. But that's because obedience is not always the popular thing to do. You're going to have to make the choice. Are you going to be obedient, or are you going to get applause from people? I think the place that this shows up most in my own life is in that area of sharing faith with other people. I'm fine to talk to you guys up here, like in front of a bunch of people. I could talk to you all day like this. But you get me one-on-one with somebody, and I am terrified of talking to people. I'm especially terrified of talking to people about faith. Strangers, friends, family, I'm terrified. Because just like Saul, I live in that fear. I live in that fear of, what are they going to think about me? What are they going to do? How are they going to react? Are they going to be mad? Are they going to get angry? Are they going to curse at me? Are they going to hurt me? Like, what's going to happen if I do this? And so often I give into that fear and choose the applause of other people, choose to look like a really put-together guy, choose to look like a really fun and funny guy in a crowd, but I disobey God because I don't do what He's calling me to do. Even just last week, Laura, you guys remember Laura? Laura spoke here, and she spoke about giving your all for God, going all in for God. And this was something that I was really convicted about in that moment. I felt like, I'm not giving my all for God in this area of sharing my faith. I need to be more outgoing. I need to be more courageous and bold. And so at the end of her message, she gave a call to anyone who was feeling this way in the first service to come up front and be prayed for. And I felt really convicted that moment to go up front. But I was scared of what all of you guys were going to think of me. I was scared of, are they going to think I'm weird? Are they going to think I'm a sinner? Are they going to think something's wrong with me? I was scared of what Roger would think about me. Roger's my supervisor here during my internship. He's supposed to think I'm all put together and I'm perfect and I'm great. I'm not perfect. But he's supposed to think that, right? And yet, that fear of what people would think about me just kept me in my seat. And so when I knew God was calling me to take a step of faith, I lived in disobedience. Because when you make these choices in life, you have to choose what's more valuable to you. Is the applause and the approval and the praise of other people going to be the ultimate thing of value in your life? Or is living faithfully and living with courage in your faith and living for Jesus all in going to be what's most valuable to you? And you can't do what Saul tried to do. You can't try to go in that 50-50 game where you're like, God, I'll obey you, but just not in the times when it's going to be awkward with people. I'll live for you in the private times, but in the public times where you're asking me to do something courageous, I can't do that. You can't play that 50-50 game, because the truth is that faithfulness to God isn't just like the small egg we had earlier. Faithfulness to God is like a gigantic dinosaur egg that you have to catch with both arms and your legs and all your body, and you got to be all in and you got to hold on to that thing tight. And the moment that you look and see the egg falling, that's the applause and the approval of other people, and you go to reach out for it, you're just going to drop faithfulness to God. You can't catch both eggs. But so often we try to, because we feel like, at least I'm obeying God in this area. At least I'm being faithful with this. But what you're actually doing is not being faithful at all. I feel God calling me so often to go and talk to people about my faith, and so often I'm like, well, I'll just pray for them from a distance. And although prayer is a good thing, it's not what God's calling me to do. Saul brought the sheep back and the cattle back to sacrifice to God. Sacrifice was a form of worship. It was a good thing to do. But it's not what God called him to do. You can't play the 50-50 game. And so when we have to make the choice to be faithful to God, it's not going to be easy. Because the truth is that the culture we live in, the lives we live today are so dependent and they value so much the likes and the followers and the appearance. Your public image is like everything. Like, if you don't sound funny, if you don't look the right way, if you aren't impressive, if your life doesn't amount to anything, if you don't look good in public, your life is over. It's not worth anything. These are the things that we hear. These are the things that culture is telling us. These are the things that we believe in our head, that if we don't look a certain way in public, then we're a failure. So every time that you choose to be faithful to God, instead of living for the applause of other people, you're like dying this social death. You're choosing to basically die to the desires of your heart and say, I'm all in, God. And this reminds me of what Jesus says in the Gospel of Luke. He says this, if any of you wants to be my follower, you must give up your own way. Take up your cross daily and follow me. If you try to hang on to your life, you'll lose it. But if you give up your life for my sake, you'll save it. And what do you benefit if you gain the whole world, or what we're talking about, if you gain all the popularity, all the likes, all the approval in the world, but you yourself are lost or destroyed? If anyone is ashamed of me and my message, the Son of Man, another title for Jesus, will be ashamed of that person when he returns in his glory and in the glory of the Father and of the holy angels. Jesus is saying, when you were called to follow me, you weren't called to this cushiony kind of life where you can just be obedient when you want to, when you can just be obedient when it doesn't cost you anything. Jesus is saying each day, you got to wake up, and that desire to be the most popular person, that desire to have everyone like you, that desire to look really good in public, you got to put that to death. You got to kill that. Because you got to live for me. You got to follow me instead. Dietrich Bonhoeffer, a famous theologian, once said this. When Christ calls a man, he bids him come and die. When we feel called to follow Jesus, when we make that decision to follow Jesus, we are being called into a lifestyle of putting to death the things that keep us from obeying God. We're being called into a lifestyle of saying no to what we want and saying yes to what Jesus wants, even if it costs us everything, even if it costs us friends, even if it costs us family, even if it costs us popularity, whatever it costs. We got to be all in. And so what is it for you? What is the thing that you're choosing the applause and approval of other people over faithfulness to God? Because obedience is choosing faithfulness over applause. But where are you choosing applause over faithfulness? Oh, go back to that slide, sorry. Got ahead of myself. Is it on your sports team? Is it when you're in the locker room or out on the field and your sports teams are saying some inappropriate things, talking about some people in some inappropriate ways? Is it when you're out on the field and your team's chirping the other team and you probably shouldn't join into this, but you don't want to seem like the weird one? You don't want to seem like the odd one out on your team who isn't doing what everyone's doing? Is it in your school when you feel called to share Jesus, but you don't want to make things awkward? Is it in your family, where you've grown up in this family And all your life, they've wanted you to be a particular kind of person. They've wanted you to grow up and be a lawyer or a doctor or someone with a lot of money. But you feel a deep call on your life to live for Jesus. And that calling, you feel that calling is calling you to ministry, to be a pastor or to be a missionary or to be out in the world doing something that isn't those things, but you're living it for Jesus. And you don't want to disappoint your parents. Or is it online? When people are gossiping and trash talking about their friends in chat rooms, or when you're gaming, or all of those places. And you know that you should stick up for them, you know you should say it isn't right, but you don't want to sound judgmental. Where is it for you? I want you to take a couple minutes right now. Don't just hear me say this. I want you to actually think about it. Take a minute right now and think about this area for you, where you're choosing the applause and approval of other people over obedience to God. I need to go get a drink. My drink's in the back. You take a minute. I'll be right back. Hi guys, Saul here. I'm back. So I want you to have that thing locked into your head. Because what we're going to do right now is I want you to get into groups of the people around you. 3, 4, 2, find a friend. Or if there's somebody new here, make sure that you find them and get in a group with them. Student leaders, make sure that nobody is left without somebody in a group. Make sure everyone has a group, because what we're going to do is we're going to pray over these things with each other, because the truth is we can't do it on our own. We need help in this from other people, but we need God's help if we're going to choose him over the applause of other people. We need his help to wake up daily and make that choice. So I want you to get in groups of 3, 4, 5. Make sure everyone has a group and pray for God's strength, pray for his forgiveness, tell each other what you were thinking about, and just pray for each other. Be there for each other in community. I'll give you a few minutes. The band can come back up while people are doing this. Go. So thirsty. My throat is like so dry. Thought you were stealing that. It's pretty nice. You might want it.
Not with that.
Pretty good.
Sports shirt, I can get anything. It's pretty good.
Thank you. Thank you, Matthew. Or, yeah, Matthew,
That was
right?
wrong.
What?
My name's Simon.
Oh, yeah, Simon. Do you know his name's Simon?
You know his name's Matthew.
Isaac, can you hold this for me? Thank you.
Are you going back up?
Yeah, but I'm waiting until people are kind of done praying.
Okay.
Do you want me to just wait until everyone's done, or are we pressed for time?
We have like 7 to 10 minutes.
Okay. I think it's just that group over there now. Okay, guys, come back in, come back in, come back in. If you're still praying, you can keep praying, but if you're not, I need you to lock back in. If you can hear me clap once, if you can hear me clap 2 times, if you can hear me clap 3 times. Could you imagine what God can do through you guys? How he can change your friend groups, how he can spread the good news about Jesus, how he can change your families. If you choose to live in courage and in boldness for him, even when it costs you. Could you imagine how he could use you to represent Jesus, the light, in a dark place, in your friend groups, when they're not doing things you know they shouldn't be doing, or when they're doing things you know they shouldn't be doing, and you stand up for what's right. Imagine how that will get them thinking about what's right. Imagine when you share your faith at school and it brings somebody else into our community. It brings somebody else into church. It brings somebody else into church and it shapes and changes their life for the rest of their lives. You guys can make such a difference. But we've got to be bold. We got to live our faith out loud, and we got to choose faithfulness over applause. We're going to sing a song here. It's called No Longer Slaves, and it talks about how we're no longer slaves to fear. We live as children of God. We don't have to be slaves to that fear that makes us not want to be bold, but we can live boldly for our faith as children of God. I'm going to invite you guys, you can come up front, and I would invite you to be bold, to raise your hands. If you feel like God's calling you to kneel, to put your hands up and just to praise him and worship him and declare this truth that we are no longer slaves with everything you have.